Journal Night.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rangers Journal. I do apologise for our tardiness this evening. There was a little bit of technical issues on our end, but I have swooped in to save the day at the last minute, so all is good now, hopefully. We're going to be talking about the upcoming Panathinaikos game. Obviously, Rangers starting off this season once more with a bid to get into the Uefa Champions League. And the first hurdle to do that will be the Greek side. So we're going to have a little chat about that. And the lads joining me this evening have all put together teams kind of based on, obviously, the incomings, the squad as it is now, but also a couple of their hopes in terms of who's going to come in. So we shall, as I say, go through their teams and have a chat about them. Obviously, we welcome all of your comments. Feel free to rip the teams to shreds if you wish and make the guys defend them as best they can. We'll go through everyone and say hello. So first to my right, my left, we've got Colin. Welcome, Colin.
Good evening. How are we?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, we're doing well. Looking forward to the chat.
Excellent. And just below me, we've got Thomas. Evening.
Jesus, full Sunday name. Not too bad. The weather's calmed down around here, so I'm not as roasting as I was on Friday when I was on.
That's good. I've been feeling that myself, the heat of late. And of course, by no means last or least, we have the incomprehensible and ever present Mitch. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Thank you for swooping in there like the wind beneath our wings there to save the day this evening.
That's it. Just call me Bette Midler. Good evening, everybody in the chat this evening as well. As I say, thank you guys for waiting as we got live. I'm just going to get our slides sorted out and we can start our chat this evening. Like I say, we are going to be inviting comments from all you guys. So do get in the chat and don't hold back on any of your thoughts on the guys' teams this evening. But first of all, we'll just go to each of you and just kind of get your thoughts on where we are in the window at the moment. And how you're feeling about the squad right now. So start with yourself, Colin.
Yeah, I think it's been a slow start. I think we would all have maybe liked for things to have moved a bit quicker, but that's the nature of these transfer windows. There's a lot of work to be done. I think we'd all agree on that. A lot of players need to go out, and a lot of players need to come in. I think that's what's going to be really interesting to see in the teams tonight. Obviously, this is theoretical. We're just under a month out from the Panathinaikos game. It's going to be a massive game for us, massive tie for us. And it's really difficult to project what the team's going to look like. I mean, in an ideal world, I'm pretty sure all of us are going to say we want 5, 6, 7 players in by that game. Is that realistic? Probably not. But I think, on the back of Max Aarons coming in today, possibly Connor Cody coming in later this week, we still need at least another 3 guys, 2-3 guys, at bare minimum before that Panathinaikos tie. That's what I'm at anyway.
Absolutely, I think that's totally fair. What about yourself, Tam? You happy with the purchases so far?
Well, I mean, we've brought in Lyle Cameron on a pre-contract. I think good sort of young player, has probably a bright future in the game. Obviously, we had to pay the money for Cortez, so it's not exactly a new signing. It's just somebody coming back. And then obviously announced earlier today that we got Max Aarons, or Aarons, however you want to pronounce it. Obviously, he's had a bit of an injury, torn couple of seasons, but I think he'll do well for us. And I don't know if he might come in to be a replacement for my starting right back in the team I've chosen.
Indeed, I think that's obviously going to be one of the big talking points that we'll be going through over the coming weeks as to what that means for James Tavernier with Aarons coming in. Will we see him playing less? Will we see him playing at centre back? We don't know. Well, time will tell, no doubt, as we get into the friendlies. How are you feeling about things at the moment, Mitch?
I think it's probably moving at the speed that it should be moving at just now. As football fans, we're all impatient and we want everything to have happened yesterday. But I think we need to be realistic. The window's only been open, 6 days, maybe 7, just over. Like, things were never going to happen on day one because of the nature of takeover, cash injections, player contract, players coming back from holiday into pre-season. The international players still aren't even back with the main group at the moment either. They don't come back until Monday. So I think it's nice to see that we've got 1, possibly 2 in the door early on, obviously depending on the Conor Cody situation. And I think we're probably going to start to see that revolving door now, I think, where if Conor Cody comes in, that frees proper up to go back to 20. And essentially, in my opinion, proper going back to Holland pays for Conor Cody, whatever the transfer fee is. You'd assume it's probably going to be under that £2 million mark, given his age in the last year, and Leicester's current situation as well. You'd assume a bit of sensible heads there that that's probably a like-for-like replacement, and I think we'll probably start to see that chain reaction as things move forward to say, okay, first couple are in the door, and I do think probably before Panathinaikos kicks off, I wouldn't be surprised if we had 1 or 2 more in the door, but equally 1 or 2 more out the door.
Absolutely. I think that's obviously part of the next step of the equation is getting some of those bodies that we're not going to be using out, as we've not really heard too many major rumours other than Dessers and Proper, who do look like they're 1 foot out the club at the moment, but we haven't really heard about some of those others. Your Davies, your Dowells, Matondo, I think as well. 3 players there that I think everyone will be happy to see moving out. That'll be a question here from Mark. Do we think ex-Aberdeen striker will come plus Lawrence Shankland, using Shankland as a squad player? I'm going to assume, Mark, that you mean Miovski in that question there. I think Miovski's an option. He did do well when he played here before, and if he does well for Aberdeen, then I'm sure he would do well for us. But I do think it kind of looks like they're looking at younger talents abroad. Obviously, a few of the players we've been linked with, like Thursman and Frigan. It looks like they're kind of maybe going for that little bit younger market. It obviously fits in with the transfer model as well. But I can absolutely see Miovski as a potential option. I know a few of the guys on the pod are fans of him as well. As for Shankland, that story's been rumbling on for so long. I just don't see there being any legs in it anymore. Surely he'd be here by now if it was going to be a thing. You never know. Say he would be fairly cheap to come in, but as Mitch was talking about a second ago, I think we need to see some outgoings if we were going to bring in two more strikers. So hope that answers your question on that one. Okay, so we'll have a wee look at the guys' teams. So let's see, who will we start with? Well, the first slide in order is Collins, so we'll start with that. Let's bring Collins' team up here. So basically, as I say, guys, we asked the panel to put together an 11 that they think might start versus Panathinaikos, or that they would like to see start at Panathinaikos. They were free to include some players that we haven't got yet, but maybe have been linked with, as well as teams that are already there. So I'll open it up to you, Colin. Do you want to talk us through your team?
Yeah, I'll do my best, Doug. Thanks for putting me first. I think I'm going to preface this by saying we don't know what Russell Martin's going to do. Is it going to be a back 3? Is it going to be a back 4? We don't know. Everybody knows the style of play. Everybody knows he wants to play from the back, and it's going to be fascinating to see how that tactical element is going to be implemented with the players that we currently have. So I suppose with that in mind, the first decision was who we're going to have in goals. So obviously we've got Kelly, we've got Butland. I've purely gone with Kelly because we know Russell Martin wants to use his goalkeeper as part of the build-up. Now, Kelly got a good run in the team towards the end of last season. He did well with Barry Ferguson. He is better. I think we would all agree. I could be wrong, but I think most of us would agree that Kelly is better with his feet than Butland is. So I've gone with Kelly in goals. I'm going to see what the other guys think of that. We've been linked with Ramsdale. There's been a couple of links with Ramsdale. I can't see that happening personally. His wages would be massive. Into the back 4, I think left backs, picks itself. Jeff Day, hopefully he takes another step forward in his development this year. And I've put Max Aarons right back, just because he's coming up the road to play. And I think one of the comments that came through a couple of minutes ago, Doug, was saying, Tav is not going to play as much this year. I agree with that. I don't think he's going to have to play as much, and hopefully that'll see better performances from him. But having said that, I don't see a world where he doesn't start this game. And as we know, there's been reports that he's going to move in 2.5. I think he's spoken about that himself, that he thinks that's going to prolong his career at the top level. So you could argue that Cody could be put in there, but if Suter's fit, I've put Tav in with Suter. Midfield 3, again, unless we get a number 6 in, a playmaker, I can't see the midfield being anything other than Conor Barron, Nico Raskin, and Diomande. Obviously, I think we're all hopeful that we can add to the midfield, whether that's a box-to-box, a guy that can score double figures in goals, or can we get that 6? I think Flynn Downs was linked early in the window. He's probably out of our price range. But if we can get a number 6, and I think we saw how good Nico Raskin can be influencing the game in the final third. So it'll be ideal to have him as one of the more advanced players, himself and Diomande. I think that would work really, really well. But here's where it gets really scary for me, and I'm sure the boys will share in that. The wide areas, we are so short in the wide areas. It's incredible. I mean, obviously, Czerny was such an influential player for us last season. He's gone. He's probably out of our price range. That's fair enough. But we've been lacking wingers for years, and all the reports are that Russell Martin's going to want to play with wingers. So I don't think I'm exaggerating in saying we don't need one winger, we don't need two wingers, we need 3 minimum. Because you'll see there, Matondo is there on the bench. I think he'll hang around. I think he may very well be one of the ones that Russell Martin wants to give a chance, a second chance, even a third chance to. He'll want to see him in training, see what he's like. McCausland will probably hang around. I know a lot of people watching probably want rid of McCausland. He's probably going to be there. And if he's a squad player, that's fine. But I put Cortez right wing. So I'm really, really hopeful that Cortez, if this boy can stay fit, he came with a real pedigree. He was one of those, when he signed, we're all looking up his YouTube compilations, and he looked like a real find. Quick player, technically gifted, knows where the back of the net is. He can strike the ball with his left and his right foot. So I think he'll get a chance, and fingers crossed he can keep fit and get a run of games in the team. Left hand side, I've stuck Ramazani in. I think this is one you guys were talking about earlier in the summer. Sorry, we were linked with the Leeds winger. They paid, I think I'm right in saying, about 10 million euros for him to get him from Almeria the season before from Spain. He had a fantastic season there, and I mean, if we could get him on a loan similar to Max Aarons, I'd be all over that. He's got Matondo's pace. He's got Czerny's final product. That would be a fantastic signing for us. And then through the middle, I've put Igman. Funnily enough, I think this is probably an area where we're really, really strong. And you mentioned it there, Doug. We've got Igman. We've got Danilo. At the moment, we've still got Dessers. Unless one of these guys leaves, we're not signing any strikers. And personally, I'd be quite comfortable heading into the season with Igman, Dessers, and Danilo as our 3 strikers. Is that realistic? Probably not. I think at least one of them will go. I would imagine a deal would be done for Dessers with AEK Athens. If so, I've put Frigan in. Who knows? Again, we're speculating. So that's the way I've lined up. It's going to be fascinating to see, is it a back 3? Is it a back 4? Because apart from Ramazani early in the window, we've all heard about Poku looks like he's heading off to the wrong Rangers. He's one to stay in London. We've not really been linked with wingers. So there is a real possibility that it's wing backs and a 3 at the back. So obviously that might help Tav. We've got Cody and hopefully Suter. In Ciala, I'll probably be a backup, which is fair enough. But yes, It's really hard to project. We're a month out, but that's we've tried to give a realistic picture of what it might look like.
And it's hard.
It's hard. It's hard.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think some good options there. I'm definitely on side with Cortez. Hopefully this will be his year. I do think he looked bright, like he said, or he looked good before he arrived, and I thought he looked bright in the few games he's had before he got started his injury run. So definitely, I think that's an interesting one. I've been looking through your comments as you've been. As Colin was talking through there. So I am sort of picking up some questions. So if you don't get your question answered immediately, then I may well get back to it near the end of the show. One that's popped up just on there that I thought might be one for some people is, who is Ramazani? So Ramazani is, as you can see in the photo there, a Leeds United player. He's a young Belgian, 24 years old. He can play both left and right wing. He's quite an exciting young player, valued around, I believe, around about 5 to 7 million. Market value is as much as market values are worth anything. He had a decent season for Leeds last year, played 31 games, 7 goals, 2 assists. He played for Almeria before that. And again, sort of most seasons, he was hitting 30 plus appearances, getting goals and assists every season. So does look like an exciting player who's got a bit of growth in him. And like Colin said there, I think if we can get him on loan, that could be an exciting prospect as well. Okay, so I'll just throw it down first to the lads to see what they make of Colin's team before we move on. So I'll start with you, Tam, and work my way back up. What's your thoughts on Colin's team?
I think it is probably a realistic sort of look at it. One slight issue, and I've seen a couple of people in the comments that probably had the same issue as well. Tav at centre back, it's not something I would have done anyway. Personally, for me, I don't think he can play that position. I know he doesn't exactly have the legs out in the right anymore, but to put it bluntly, the guy can't defend. So that's probably the only issue that I can find with it. Further up the pitch, Cortez, if he can keep fit, he might be good, but also we've not seen much of him, so we can't really make a judgment. But apart from that, can't really find any other faults with
it. And what about yourself, Mitch?
I think the goalkeeping options right now, as it stands, it literally could be flip a coin on any given day. Because I think, for me, reputationally, Butland would probably start ahead of Kelly. Practically, Kelly should start ahead of Butland because I think he earned the right at the back half of the season. So I do think either we're going to get a big Butland redemption arc or we're going to get a new keeper in. Because Liam Kelly is, I will say domestically, he's absolutely fine as a keeper. But that step up into the Champions League and into the Europa League, I would probably hold a question mark on him. And that's no slight to Liam. I like Liam Kelly as a keeper. But I just don't think he's quite got that quality for that step up from the domestic level. But again, I think that is one genuinely any given day of the week you could flip a coin on it and be like, do you know what, Tig, Liam, you're in, or Tig, Jack, you're in. I will say that the choice of the right winger by Ramzani's a wee bit out there, but that's just me being pernickety, to be honest with you.
Yeah, see, to be honest, Mitch, I couldn't bring myself to put Barami or Matondo on this team, and so if it wasn't going to be a new signing, it was going to be McCausland, Matondo, or Barami. See the Tav selection at centre half. I had a fair idea I was going to get some pushback on that, and it's absolutely fair. It's not something any of us would even have considered halfway through last season. Now, he actually defended reasonably well when he went inside to centre half from right back away to Man United. I think he had a couple other outings at centre half. Now, are we all in agreement? I mean, I cannot see a scenario where Tav does not start this game. So it's either the reports are true about moving to centre half, or he's going to be a right back and Max Aarons can be on the bench. Now, I cannot see a scenario where Max Aarons is coming up here to be on the bench for any amount of time. He is going, if not stay away, he is going to nail down that right back position. So what's the thoughts on Tav and where his position the team is?
Right back in the changing room.
Harsh.
Probably still at Glasgow Airport.
I think like when I take a sensible approach to it, it's clear that Tav's probably not going anywhere this year, and common sense would tell us that he's also probably not getting a new deal at the end of this one. But equally, we've tried to base these squads on what we have right now,
exactly,
and also the kind of murmurings of, as you say, like the players that we know are likely to come in, the likes of Connor Cody, and obviously with Aaron's being confirmed today. So it's a sticky assignment to go. If we got Connor Cody in tomorrow, would Tav probably start as centre back? Probably not. But Connor Cody's equally also not in the door right now. So I'm not going to lie, maybe sneak preview. I've also got Tav in at centre back in my team. And it's for the very reason of Connor Cody's not in the door as we speak. So I've worked on you have to work with the tools that are at our disposal, and you can take that both literally metaphorically in this case.
Sorry for jumping in here again, Doug, but I wonder if I can ask, I mean, where are you guys at in terms of Suter and Cody as a partnership? I mean, to me, I heard the pod last night. The insight on Connor Cody was absolutely fascinating. It was fantastic to hear the pros and the cons, the strengths, the weaknesses that he's going to bring both on and off the pitch. But personally, to me, Suter and Cody, I think it lacks pace. And I think we'd obviously, if Cody comes in, great leadership, fantastic. He's played at a really good level. He's also got 10 caps for England. We'd still be looking for another centre half. Fair?
I don't know. I mean, for me, and Doug will tell you, I'm a big champion of Enciala. Like, I don't think the boy put a foot wrong. The Kelly game, I'm not being funny. Anyone at the back could have been hooked. He just, and as much as in the heat of the moment, I may not have agreed with Barry's decision to hook Enciala, it also made equally the most amount of sense, and it's probably one of the few things I will say Barry get right. Take the young player out of the equation and say, you've not been in the trenches at this way, and we don't want to end up with Leon King Part 2 where we give you scar tissue at a young age. So we take you out the equation and we put your experienced colleague into the fire to say you have been in the trenches and you have been in this position before, and we shut up shop and we don't give Enciala the scar tissue. And I did think it was important that Barry obviously post-match straight away put the arm around him, and you'd imagine he's obviously explained the reason to him at half-time. Look, it's not personal why you came off, but I think based on his outings last season, I think he's given us every right to say you should be centre-back 4 for next year. Like, you should be in that Leon Balogun role where you pick up 15 to 20 games over the course of the season. And I think that's also probably the next step in his evolution into the first team as well, where you say, this is the season that you've got Connor Cody there, you've got John Suter there, you've got Tav there as well to lean on, and ideally I probably would still like one more in at the back. But you say that this is the time where you've got 2 experienced players, that have been in the trenches, seen it all. You've got John Suter, who I think is a partnership with Connor Cody, weirdly I think could work. You leave John Suter to do the hurricane door defending that we all know that he does, be the siege defender. Leave that as his role. Just go and be the bulldozer at the back. And you leave Connor Cody to be the aerial threat, be tidy on the ball, and let him do the physical aspects that we know that tends to break John Suter down. Because we're not going to fix every single problem in this window and the next window. Because there's still going to be a couple of issues rolling about, I think.
Absolutely. I think those are all good points. I think for my 2 cents on first the Tavernier issue, in my opinion, it's pretty much the same as it was last season. At the start of last season, when I said we needed to bring someone in to start, phasing Tavernier out. That's what we've now done. Aarons is by far I think the best player that we brought in that right back position, and like a few of you have said, he's here to play. Part of it will come down to the first question that you raised, Colin, as to what will the formation be. If we play three at the back, I think you're more likely that you'll potentially see Tav more often, because there'll be two positions that you can potentially slot into, depending on incomings and outgoings. If we play four at the back, then we'll probably see a little less of him. But I think we will still rotate. I mean, him and Aarons will challenge each other, which hopefully brings out the best of them. And you know, Tavernier, I think ultimately, again, he's still the same position that I thought he was last year. He shouldn't be playing as many games as he's been playing. He played the second most minutes of any outfield player last year, which, given that he spent the first quarter of the season in and out the team, is still ridiculous. But he does still have things to offer going forward. You know, he still had, I think, 18 goal involvements, 13 assists, and 5 goals. So, you know, he's still got something to offer, but we should not be relying on him, and he shouldn't be playing. You know, we're now in season 10 of say, and we've all been saying it, even me for the last 2 years, and I think most people for 2 or 3 years, he needs to be playing less football. So I think that's kind of where we are, and it will partly settle on who comes in and what formation we play. But what I think is good is the fact that you have Tav in the squad, is that he will be available whenever he's needed, if he's needed, because Tavernier is always fit. And you know, if there's one thing that you want in a squad player, it's that they're available when they're needed. And we've had too many squad players again that have not fit that bill. Your Lawrences, your Matondos, etc. That, you know, they're squad players that have not been fit when we've needed them. So I think that's where we're sitting on that. Okay, let's go over to Tam's team now. Get Tam's team up. And there we go. So do you want to take us through your team, Tam?
So I've started with Liam Kelly in goals. Already been touched on, but he has earned his place. I don't think that Butland deserves to start it at all. So that's why I went with Kelly. Jeff there at left back, again, speaks for itself. I think that he will develop more this season. Bear in mind, these teams that we are picking are just for this game. This is not how we're saying we're going to line up for the rest of the season. So I think Jeff Day definitely for this game, 100%. Sutter, again, a no-brainer. You've got realistically no one else that can start at all, unless you're wanting to bring in Davies to do that. Proper, obviously rumoured to be leaving, so that's why I've put Sutter in. We've got Connor Cody there at centre back. Obviously, someone that we've just touched on, somebody that we think could be coming in, but obviously we don't know yet 100%. If Cody weren't to come in, I would say put Nsiala in. And here we get to the sticky situation at right back. In my eyes, Tav doesn't deserve to start the game. But Aarons, I'm not sure if he'll be ready to play in a Champions League fixture as his first game. So I think that even though I might not want him to start, he's gone. And it's something that I'm going to have to suck up and probably watch from behind the couch. And this is where my sort of formation changes from Collins a little bit. I've decided to go with 2 defensive midfielders, so 2 sixes, as you would call them. Raskin and Barron in there. Raskin as well has the captaincy for me. I think that I just think that he's a better leader nowadays, and if Tav only stays for this last year, you'd rather someone leading the team who's going to get much more game time and may stay for longer than whoever the current captain is. Conor Barron, just for me, deserves to play. I personally wouldn't put Diamande in as a 6. I don't think that he's that good there. So for me, anyway, that's something that I wouldn't do myself. And then we move on to another one of our new signings, Lyle Cameron, and at centre mid. I think just having a young player in there with a bit of legs, giving support to Dessers up top would be helpful. Left wing is the one that I am going to get probably the most stick for, and that is Rabbi Matondo. Ever since Matondo?
Is he a new signing?
Ever since Matondo came to Rangers, I've liked him. I think he's actually a really good player. I know some people have their opinions on him, but for me, he's probably the best / only winger we've really got. Striker, again, my team's really on who's sort of deserved to play, and I think Dessers has done that. I think that he's obviously top goal scorer in the league. He can finish. He has shown that he can. And Igaman, I just don't know if I would throw him into this fixture. If Igaman was to play, for me, he would come on as a substitute for Matondo. And right wing is something I'm going to change on the spot here quickly, because I heard just before we came on that Poku has gone for a medical at QPR. Apparently, I was about to say rumouredly. So the person I'm going to bring in is Ross McCausland. Again, could get stick for it, but he's a young guy, and I think that he definitely still has time to develop, and I think this could be a fixture that could suit him.
Good stuff. Thanks for taking us through that there. I'll come to you, Mitch. Thoughts on Tam's 11? He's gone with I would say is a more traditional Rangers European side with the 2 sitting mids. But then he's also got your great love Dessers up front. So I'm assuming it's a pass from you regardless.
Dessers is his only saving grace in that team there. I mean, the inclusion of McCausland in the right wing, that's a war crime on its own. I'll be seeing him in The Hague come the end of this. I think his backline is what it is. It's based on who we have and who we think that we're roughly going to have come then. So I think most of us are going to have almost a similar, incarnation of that. Putting Matondo on in there, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to send the doctor round to see you later on, Tam, son. I think Matondo's like driving a speedboat but using a pedal steering wheel. That's probably the only way I can put that. I'd rather see Daffy Duck running down the wing, but he'll hurt himself doing it. His midfield, I think, is quite interesting. I don't know how. Me personally, I can't see how that trio of Cameron, Raskin, and Barron work together very well. I think Barron would be too guilty of trying to copy what Raskin does in terms of being the terrier, get in, grab the ball off someone, but he's not obviously got Raskin's quality to get them out the hole when we need to get out the hole. I think that would be, and I think that's where Diamande offers that better box-to-box presence, and he can score more from outside the box. But again, I'm also not a football manager, so what do we know? But I think a couple of wild card selections in there, and again, much Dessers up top there, Tam, that saves your team.
No surprises there from Mitch. What about yourself, Colin? What's your thoughts on Tam's 11?
I'm not going to tear into it because we don't know what it's going to look like. But couple of things. I think obviously the midfield makeup is really, really interesting. As we all know, most games are won and lost by who dominates the midfield. I'd put Raskin in the 6 with 2 8s, as they call them, because that's the way Russell Martin's shaped up his midfield. Tam's obviously gone there with a double pivot of Raskin and Barron. I don't see a scenario where if Diomande is still in the building, Diomande starts this game. He's struggled to adapt to Scottish football. I think the physicality of the game, he's really struggled in some of the games. But his best performance have actually probably been in Europe. So I can't see a scenario where Diomande doesn't start the game. Matonda one's an interesting one because obviously I've gone with Ramazani. I don't know what Mitch has done with his front three. I'm looking forward to seeing that. But we don't know what that's going to look like. But if Matonda's still in the building and we haven't signed a winger, and I really hope that's not the case. So if Matonda's still in the building, we haven't signed any wingers, there's every chance, as Tam said, that Matonda starts on the left wing. Or it could be Barami. McCausland, for me, like I was saying before, he can be your second, third option, a squad player. But we cannot be relying on people like Ross McCausland when it comes to Champions League qualifiers. That's what I'm at.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. We hope that we're going to get a few bodies in on those wings. I think in order to give our attack a bit more of a spearhead. It's been a problem for the last couple of years. We're not getting enough goals and assists from our other attacking players. It continued to be the same last season, apart from Cherney, which was why, like many, I would quite happily have paid the 6-7 million to have signed him, because if he's going to bring the goals and assists he brought for another 2 or 3 seasons, that would be entirely worth it, in my opinion. But
I will say one point there, sorry, just looking at everybody's teams, as it does show you that we don't necessarily need players out to bring players in, you know, from a monetary aspect, but there's still quite a lot of fat and gristle in the team just now that, you know, we can't start the season proper with 33 players contracted because nobody's getting a game, you know, nobody's getting the amount of game time that they want, and then you end up with a massively bloated, unhappy squad. Realistically, we probably still need 4 or 5 out to replace with 4 or 5 decent bits of quality.
Absolutely, bodying is going to be important. And as I say, I think the big question is just how many we'll be able to get in this window, and indeed before the game kicks off. So I just add up there, Gordon, in the comments saying, looking forward to Mitch's team. Well, Gordon, you need wait no longer. We are get to our final team of the 3, which is Mitch's 11. So Mitch, your turn. Talk us through your choices.
Now, firstly, first person that tries to slag me for having Dessers as a striker, I need you to remember you can't fight and I'm bigger than you. So, with team, again, Butland, for me, I think it's an experience over Liam Kelly, and it is just you could have asked me that question right now and my answer might have been different from what I've put in the team here. But I do think Russell Martin's probably going to give Jack the respect of being a seasoned and ex-international, you know, goalkeeper, of giving him that redemption arc, I think. And the back line, again, very similar reasons to Colin's back line of, I don't see a world that Aarons has come in that he's not going to be a starting player, especially for the money he's on. But equally, when I look at who is physically in the building and contractually signed right now, I couldn't put Connor Cody in there because he's not physically signed at the moment. And that's why Tav's in at centre-back with Suter for me. And again, you could switch them either, you know, Suter in the left and Tav in the right, or you can switch them either way around. For me, I don't really particularly mind. I think with my midfield, I've went for the Raskin, Diomande and Cameron, and I think Cameron for me is in here, and it is marginally ahead of Connor Barron. And I think it is just he's got slightly more legs for throughout the game in terms of if we're going to be in a very tight game that we've not got many chances coming to the midfield, I would probably prefer to see, I'd rather see Cameron in there with a pop, 15 yards out than Connor Barron, who I think he only scored once, maybe twice last season. Doug, you'll be able to fact check me on that, don't worry. But compare that to, Lyle Cameron's record last season where he scored, give or take, I think it was about 10 or 12 goals all season. I know which one of the two of them I would prefer being at the end of a ball, in that 15-yard dead zone. On the wings, it's probably, again, it gave myself probably much more of a realisation of just how empty the cupboards are on the wing. Cortez, I think, much like everybody else, I think this is his redemption season, and I will say, we've touched on this in previous pods, his recovery last season wasn't necessarily helped by Barry and co when they came in, or Clement and co, of everybody sugarcoating him on the way in, of we'll give him a couple of wee trickly minutes here and then you'll not see him for 4 or 5 weeks at a time. Now he's got the injury, it's clear, it's out the way, he's got a full pre-season, and for the money that we've paid for him and the reputation that we know that he came to us with, put your money where your mouth is, son. Go and show us what you can do. On the right wing, I went with Baj because I thought I put McCausland in there made me feel ill. So that just wasn't for happening. And also, Bajrami has also played on the right wing as well, internationally and in Italy. Again, would my preference be to see Baj out there, as things stand? Absolutely, because again, I think it's the best of what we've got. Come match day, would I like Baj to be the only option on the right wing? Probably not. But equally, I think if we signed the right winger, I would probably still put Bajrami in ahead of Lyle Cameron. I would still have him in there or thereabouts the team, because I do think last season, under both Clement and under Barry, I don't think Diamande or Bajrami particularly had tactics that were suited to how they play. Bajrami at his best plays well in the 10, and he's got a cracking set of feet on him. He knows where the goal is, but he wasn't really given that. For me, I don't think he was given that license to show it. The same way with Diamande. I don't know how many times I've kind of said in previous pods were we allergic to shooting from outside the box last season. Just worst case scenario, you fire the shot into the box and you put it in the mixer, and at that point anything happens. But we all know my starting striker was never going to be anyone other than CD9, the man that will be mine all season long. If he's to be sold, I would put Hamza Agamani in there if he was to be sold.
So I think that's the logical switch in that position. Connor Barron last season, no goals and 2 assists for his stats in all competitions. So a little bit of work there to be done. But I do think he provides a lot in other areas. Colin, what's your thoughts on Mitch's 11?
Yeah, I think the first thing is both lads have made a case for Lyle Cameron. And I think Mitch, as he said there, makes a strong case in terms of the numbers, goals, assists, getting in that box. If you've got Raskin sitting in the 6, and you've got Diamande and Cameron, then that is definitely more exciting than Diamande and Connor Barron, because Connor Barron is just going to get in amongst it. He's going to be physical. He's going to win the ball back, and he's going to give it simple. And then you're basically saying to the front 3, go and create. So I think the case for Lyle Cameron is really strong. I've got a question for Mitch. He kind of sidestepped.
Ask away.
Yeah. So we've both got the exact same back 4 as things stand now.
Yeah.
I think obviously if Cody comes in, what are we doing? Do you think Tav moves to right back, or do you think Tav's out of the team?
I think Suter's out of the team.
Right.
And I think that's just down to captaincy. And genuinely, that is what it boils down to for myself, as just captaincy at that point of, I don't see Russell Martin, for such a big game, putting the captain on the bench.
Yep.
I think, it'll be a nice problem to have if we get there. But equally, I do think probably Suter's the odd man out, and at that point as well, Suter's also in the final year of his contract, so if he finds himself in that boat, John Suter's going to have a wee bit of a wee bit of a good look in the mirror at that point? Or does Tavernier do the adult thing and say to Russell Martin, I'll take that Ryan Jack type role of I will be club captain and I will captain the team when I play, but in my absence, Nico Raskin takes the pitch, takes the armband on the games that I'm not playing, and then that's how you almost square dance around the problem.
Yeah, I mean, and both you have CD9 at the top end of the pitch. Nobody can argue with that. I mean, his goals record is absolutely fantastic. I'm thinking back to last season when Iggerman went through that, amazing period of, I can't remember, it was like 10 goals in 11 games or something, 11 goals in 10 games, something like that. And all of a sudden, he was sent out to the left wing and Dessers was put back through the middle. And we went through 3 or 4 games where we just looked abject in attack. And I think it stunted Iggerman's growth. And I just think, in terms of our assets, and they're talking up the big game about, the player trading model. Obviously, Raskin's been the subject of interest. Iggerman himself might be gone. But if Iggerman's still in the building this season, I think we have to make him the main player in that front line. I think we have to give him the opportunity to lead the line in his natural position and go and score the goals. And I think he can do it. Now, it's all ifs and buts. We don't know if Desser's even going to be in the building at that point. And of course, we haven't even mentioned Danilo. So if Danilo stays fit, he's going to be in the conversation as well, because when he's come in, when he's been fit, he hasn't really got our run of games in the team, but he can score goals as well, and we've obviously spent a lot of money on him. So the central area, I think we're pretty strong, and it might be a case of one out, one in. But like you were saying, Mitch, the wide areas are scary, really scary.
But in old Mother Hubbard territory at that point. We're looking in the cupboards and there's nothing there.
Yep.
And potentially an option might be, and I know it certainly wouldn't be my first choice, would be maybe put Tav as a backup right winger. I don't really like it personally, but he's got the delivery and the quality of foot to do it. And also you could then have him and Aaron's, kind of run, one goes forward, one stays back, kind of interchange with each other. But I don't really think, and again, no slight on Tav there, because, everything that he's done for the club, I just don't think the legs are there to kind of even do that interchange anymore, because even from a footballing perspective, the number of games that we've asked them to play in the last 5 and 6 years in particular, they're not young 34-year-old legs anymore. They are heavily weathered 34-year-old legs now. And again, I think that's obviously quite clearly the signing of Aaron. You'd assume if that works out well for all parties, you'd maybe assume that looking at next summer, if Bournemouth turn around and say, here's £8 million, you buy him, you say, well, do you know what? Fine, we'll take him because he's, 10 years younger just about than Tav, and you go, if we get 5 years or good 4 years out of him, somebody comes in for him at 10 million, again, that cycle continues, because I don't think, for me, I love Dijon Sterling, I really do, but I don't think that we can realistically fathom him into first team plans until at least Christmas time, because nobody knows how, if he came back in October from the injury, nobody knows how his body's going to react to that either. Does he have a setback? Does he not have a setback? I think for me, Sterling would be like my luxury player, if you want to call it, for the first half of the season, where if he's available and he's fit, fantastic. If he's not available, then I never really counted on him to be available in the first place.
Yeah. See, just one more point. I think we've all had Ridvan on the bench. Ideally, Ridvan will be out the door. I don't know if we all agree, but in my opinion, ideally, Ridvan will be out the door in the next couple of weeks. He's shown glimpses since he came. He's certainly not justified the price tag we paid for him. He's not on the pitch. He's not available often enough. And I saw today we've been linked with Owen Beck from Liverpool. So presumably, if he's coming in, then Ridvan will probably be moved on. There's been talk of interest in Turkey. So yeah, that's one to watch.
I'll be honest, controversially, not like me, I'm aware, I would still have Ridvan as my starting left back over Yefty, and it's purely on Yefty, and it's not Yefty's fault, just to be absolutely clear before I say what I'm about to say or before Doug shoots me. Like, I think Yefty has so much still to learn, especially about his decision making in the final third and in the middle of the pitch. Too many times last season, you see him do the hard bit where he takes the ball off an attacker in a good position, gets off on his bike, gets up to the halfway line, and then puts a suicide pass out to his partner in midfield who's got two men crawling up his backside at that point. And there's nothing that our midfield can do about that. Even Prime Iniesta would have struggled. Or he gets up, gets all the way up the length of the pitch and then puts a cross into the Clyde. And you're like, you need to work on those aspects of your game. And I think that's why having Ridvan there who is experienced, and again, Colin will learn very quickly. I have a soft spot for a rogue. Like, he's probably already learned. Like, I think that's probably why I would still have Ridvan as it stands before Owen Beck or anybody was signed. If Beck comes in, quite clearly somebody's got to go because Robbie Fraser's also got to factor in somewhere else as well.
Absolutely, some good points being made there. I think the point about Lyle Cameron was a good one from Colin there. I don't know if a lot of people appreciate the fact that Cameron got 14 goals and 11 assists last season for a Dundee side that were bottom half of the league. If he translates anything near to that in a dominant Rangers team, I think he could do very well. I'm quite excited about that. Okay, so before we'll move on to Tam to get his thoughts on this, and I actually want to put a question to you to start you off, Tam. Something that kind of came up at the very beginning there. When Russell Martin was appointed, he wasn't a universally beloved choice. A lot of people, were quite sort of against it from the get-go. Obviously, the Tavernier question is a big question. If we were to go into this game, which obviously is a big game, and he was to bench Tavernier, do you think that immediately brings a lot of people on side to Russell Martin because he's made that decision that none of the previous managers have made?
I think it might split the fans, to be honest. I think it could go 50-50. Obviously, you have the two groups, as I call them. You have the TAV fan club and the TAV get as far away from the team as you can, please, club. It's definitely a big statement to be made as basically your first thing to do as a Rangers manager is, do you bench your captain? It would get me on side, 100%. I know that it would get plenty of other people on side as well. But I don't know. Personally, I don't know if Martin will take that risk. I think it's when he was at Southampton, he did read the media and stuff, and I'm not sure if he could take it, the heat potentially. But moving on from the Tavernier conversation, Mitch said some crazy things there during talking about that team.
Stepping him off.
So we'll start off with the little comment you made about Sutter benching him and having Tav and Cody. That would I don't think I could live with that personally. And then the other comment that was made with Tav, the backup right winger situation. Mm-hmm. If Tav doesn't have the legs for right back, I don't know what makes anybody think really that he would have the legs for a Rangers right winger.
So I think I did kind of preface that though, as I said, with the backup option with him, that his quality of delivery is still there, and if you can get it to a point where him and Aarons can almost lever an arch with each other, where one goes forward, one stays back, one goes forward, the other one stays back. And I think that's, and again, do I want to see us in that position? Absolutely not. Just to be clear, before anyone phones the doctors to pop round and see me. Like, that's certainly not something that I want to see happening. I think, though, where I think Suter would become the odd man out is if Russell Martin, and he's already told everybody he's not taking the captaincy off Tav. So equally, we can't then expect, putting a logical brain on, we can't then expect him to bin the captain for such a big game like this. So then, for me, I think Suter almost becomes the odd man out. But equally, if the backline's struggling, then we've got a siege defender that we can bring on to go, right, okay, we're 1-0 up, we're 70 minutes in, Tav's legs are buckling because he's older now. I really don't mind seeing Suter coming in to see out that last 20 minutes where there's going to be a lot more action involved, and I would much rather see Suter in there for that than aged 34-year-old legs. That's like asking me to go and play centre back, and I'll let you know now, boys, I've not got the legs for
that. I think Tav would get hooked after 30 minutes against a Champions League level attack at centre back. I seriously don't think he would last at all.
Nah, I think questions over his durability and things like that. He's answered these questions time and time again in the last 10 years. I know 10 years ago, Tam, like you were still running about with your nappies on and all that. Like he's shown us that with the athleticism though over 10 years and the durability in 10 years. His record shows that he can do 50 plus games a season with ease. Should we be asking him to do that? It's a separate question, but this Panathinaikos team, though, isn't peak Barcelona like some of us are making out. This is a relatively poor Panathinaikos team compared to ones in recent seasons. They were quite massively off the mark last year, and I don't see them, unless they've suddenly found, like, some oligarchs' billions in the back garden, I don't see them being able to address too many of those problems over the summer either.
I get that, but also we are a relatively poor Rangers side just now as well.
There's arguments both for and against.
See one of the comments there saying, I hope all these teams are miles away from what the actual team against Panathinaikos is. I'm with you. Absolutely 100%. We would all hope that there's another 6-7 starters coming in the door by then. But being realistic, I think we're talking 3-4 max. And then we've got to remember the window doesn't shut till the 1st of September, end of August. That's miles away. This game takes place in less than 4 weeks' time.
Aye, and as you say, there's only so much we can do in a few weeks, but I think I've touched on this before as well, though. I think the one thing that doesn't hinder all clubs this season that hindered us all last year was there's no major football tournaments this summer, so I think that revolving door of the elite clubs shopping between each other, and then the Pool A clubs, like those top 6 in the elite leagues, coming shopping in the B leagues like ours and those non-top 5 European leagues, it starts that funnel much quicker, I think, where, for argument's sake, let's say Aston Villa, using the most recent rumours, if Aston Villa came in for Raskin, then we've probably got 5 or 6 targets already lined up to replace him. And we've probably got 5 or 6 targets in each area, and we sure as hell hope that we've got 5 or 6 wingers lined up there. But I think, as you say, with international players for most leagues not coming back until Monday, I don't really think we could ask for much more movement than what we've had this far. But we'd probably all like to see a lot more movement, probably next week and the week after, to give these players a couple of weeks with the team as well.
See if Max Aarons, Connor Cody and Owen Beck are Russell Martin's first 3 signings. I think it shows us 2 things. First of all, he's prioritising the backline, which is great because we conceded far, far too many goals last season. But second of all, these three vastly improve our defence from last season. I don't think there's any doubt. We can talk about the individuals, where they're going to fit in. Is Cody going to start the first game, whatever. These three 100% improve our defence. So if we can do that across the board in midfield and attack, then we're definitely on the right wavelength. But see these qualifiers, and we say this every year. These qualifiers come around at a really difficult time. Every single season, we have got to start winning domestically. We have to start winning domestically. These European runs every year. Seville was fantastic. We did well last year again in Europe. They're great. We love Thursday nights. However, we have got to get back to winning domestically. And I know it's obvious. And we've heard it in the EGM. They're here to win, and to win straight away. And if we can win the league next year, I think I saw something on the Scottish coefficient thing the other day saying that our coefficient points are really high. If Rangers win the league this year, I think we get directly into the league phase of the Champions League. There will be no qualifiers. Now, that's massive. So yes, we're here talking about the Champions League ties. Fantastic. If we can win a couple, get some more money in the bank. If we could make the league phase, that would be absolutely tremendous. But let's win the league. Please, let's win the league.
Absolutely. I think everybody would agree on that point, Colin, and that's a good point for us to start wrapping up over, I think, as well, winning the league. I did say I would pick up some questions, so I will quickly go through some of them. I was going to put them to everybody, but because I said I was holding them, and I know some of you have been waiting. So very quickly, before we finish, Sid put up a comment asking why Sterling wasn't really in any teams. He's back in October. You've just answered your own question there, mate. He's not back till October, so therefore I think the guys have left him out there. Unfortunately, he will not be an option for these early ties. Someone also asked about has Cifuentes returned? Comes from Scott. He is returning. His loan obviously ended. They did not. I forget the team name. Alice something. Was it Thessaloniki? I think it is. Forgive me there. Did not take up the option to purchase him. They wanted to lower the fee, and as far as I'm aware, we did not adhere to that. So he will be coming back. But I think most conventional wisdom is that he will be on his way out at some point. Gordon put in a comment saying his worry is that Rice and Curtis, will they get any game time? We'll need to see. I think our record does not speak well for that. But hopefully they'll get the option. And I'm sure Mitch will love to see them both, as he's a big advocate of the young players. So we will see how they get on. Fingers crossed. I think everyone would like to see them get some minutes this season. So see how they go.
I think touching on the Curtis one there, I think the best thing for Curtis, at least the first half of this season, depending on who comes in, Curtis might benefit from being one of the players that maybe takes up one of those loan slots at Wraith Rovers that's been floated about. Definitely. And I think one thing that gives me a lot more hope this year than under previous managers is Russell Martin's not afraid to give young players a chance either. He's done it with players like Will Smallbone. He's done it with players like Harry Darling. I know that's a sore one for most of us just now. But you look at some of the players that he's brought in through Swansea and at Southampton. He's not afraid. He is very much of that mantra. If you're good enough, you're old enough. And I think he'll bring them in a protected manner. I think the first few times we see extended runs, it will be the team are maybe on a 3-4 game win streak, and we'll see maybe Bailey Rice come in for a start against, say, St Mirren or say Motherwell. We'll see him dropping in for a game like that of okay, well, the team's been winning. It's a well-oiled machine. You've got 10 other players around you that know what they're doing. Show us what you've got. The floor's yours.
Absolutely. Hopefully we'll see a bit of them. Mark had a couple of questions. I'm only going to have time to get to one for now, Mark, I'm afraid. The one you seemed most keen on finding out was asking about Owen Beck and Mulligan from Dundee. From what I understand, the Mulligan deal has died. The team apparently decided they weren't sure if he was up to where they wanted. And I believe there's some rumours that he may be going to Hibs. Have come out in the last couple of hours or so. So I think that one's probably dead in the water. As for Owen Beck, Rangers are interested in him. We were interested in the previous window as well, but it didn't go anywhere at that point. But apparently we are interested. And the main question at the moment is what Liverpool's stance is on him, whether they're going to loan him out again or whether they'll offer him for sale. So that's kind of where we are with that one. Not a huge amount of information, but as I say, that is a player that Rangers apparently are interested in. And the final question from Curry, my bestest pal in the world. Is Champions League that important to us this season? I'll answer this the same way as what I would follow up what Colin was saying about Europe in general. I think European football is important because it helps us get better players, and that will help us win the league. And so that's why I think that regardless, I think European football should remain a priority. The league is the number one priority, but Europe should remain a priority for that main reason. And then also, in terms of Champions League, the finances are an absolute must. If we can win the league this season and we're straight into the Champions League, and Celtic have got, I think it'll be about all three qualifying rounds if they were second, that immediately starts to turn that financial table that we've been behind on for far too long. So I think that's the big one there. Okay, so we have got a little bit over time. Thank you, everybody, for staying in the chat. Thank you also for hanging about at the beginning there as we got everything sorted. Massive thanks to the three guys for putting their teams together and putting their points across. Big thanks to Tam, big thanks to Mitch, and an extra big thanks to Colin, who I believe, I didn't realise this when I was rushing on earlier, tonight was your debut. So how did you find your first pod?
I think people took it easy on me, so yeah, enjoyed it. Enjoyed the discussion. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks. Hopefully, things start moving. But yeah, fascinating discussion, and thanks to everybody for submitting the questions.
Absolutely, it was really great having you on. You spoke really well. Looking forward to seeing you on the pod again. So it just remains for me again. Thank everyone in the comments for getting involved tonight. Thank you to our match sponsor, our pod sponsor, Off to the Match I Go. You can go to offtothematchigo.co.uk and get bespoke footballing and Rangers memorabilia. They've got all sorts of things from like miniature statues to framed, signed photographs, memorabilia, goalie gloves, all sorts of things like that. And you can get 10% off by putting in Journal 10. That's capital JOURNAL 10 in the checkout to get 10% off. And yeah, that was a whirlwind for me. I didn't know I was going to be on the pod until about 2 minutes after the pod was due to start. That was a good one this evening. A great conversation. We'll have much more conversation, no doubt, about the squad and the team prior to the Panathinaikos game. So stay tuned to the Rangers Journal for that. And remember that every night is a Rangers Journal night. Good night, guys.